morning, everyone. Welcome to the Ellis County Commission meeting. Before we start this meeting, we'll please acknowledge a moment of silence for the tragic events and the man killed over the weekend here up in Pennsylvania. Okay. All rise that are capable for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Neil Younger.
Present.
Chair Nathan Liker.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Burgess.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Are there any changes to the order of business? Darren? No?
No.
Okay. Moving on. Prior minutes, has everybody had a chance to look through?
Yep, look fine.
Looks good again. Clerk did a good job.
Okay. Moving on to our consent agenda. Any comments?
Nope. Everything looked good. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through G.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent agenda is approved. Issues from persons not on the order of business. If anybody from the public at this time wishes to speak. Okay, come on up.
I don't know if this is going to be addressed later or not, but I'd like to ask some library questions concerning the county library.
The library? We will be having discussion on the library later on, so if you would like to hold and comment then, that would be sufficient.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Is there anyone else from the public that is not on the agenda at this time? Okay, moving on. The monthly departmental report. Has everybody had a chance to look through that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And no comments. Looks good to me.
Okay.
Good.
I'd just like to throw out there, I do appreciate HR throwing on a couple of things in there for what they do, kind of as a new department to the departmental report. And then also with the health department in regards to their foot clinic, it's been such a success that they've had to add an extra day and are still booked. So kudos to Kim and her team out there. Next, we have the Moderate Income Housing Grant with Will Major and RMDX.
Good morning, everybody. My name
Morning.
is Will Major. I'm with RMDX Development
Morning.
Group out of Omaha, Nebraska. I'm here with DP Management, Brian Riley, Steve Toth, and Bob Furley. Here to present kind of some project ideas that we have for the intersections of East 22nd Street and Wheatland Ave. We have secured a piece of what is now farmland. We intend to develop it into apartment housing units. And so we're just kind of here to tell you a little bit more about that.
Okay.
So I'm Brian Riley. I'm from DP Management in Omaha. And to start off, I think maybe we'd want to introduce ourselves a little bit about what we have done in the past and maybe what qualifies us to be asking for, the ability to work with you. I think we've got some slides here. So I don't know if you guys can all see that. Mm-hmm. But this is a list of references in regard to, now we're working as a partnership. So DP, we've built projects in communities like Hayes since, well, the company was started, the Dial companies were started in 1958, and DP is one of the associates of the Dial companies. We've been operating in communities like Hayes for 60 years or more. So the list of references that I just showed, Gary Pearson in North Platte is community development there. That's the most recent project that we've completed. Actually, we're starting our third phase of it because they keep asking us to come back and build more. It's had a very substantial impact on Lincoln County, which is the community around North Platte, Nebraska. And so they keep asking us to keep adding to it. So Gary is one person that we would recommend you reach out to, and then the rest of them are additional references regarding what we've done. The local hospital, in fact, is our partner on that one, because among the first 10 residents that we got at that project, the first one was a anesthesiologist, a couple nurses, a couple pharmacists, people that they couldn't draw into the community until they saw our apartments, and then all of a sudden people wanted to go there. One of the things that we've discovered about what we do with the apartments that we build is that young people are going to school at KU or K-State. They're going to schools out of state. They live in these very nice apartments and extremely nice dorms now, and they don't want to move back home or to a community where they have a job opportunity if they have to take a step down in housing. And so we build a quality product that has a good number of amenities. It's got a pool, a clubhouse, all of the things that young people and from millennials down want to see in an apartment. So there's a list, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there's a list of projects that we have worked on just within the last few years. So I'm going to, real quickly, Victory Village is in Madison County in Nebraska. Norfolk is the town. And then Victory Village on Lakeview. You can see that there are 3 phases. We originally went in with the idea that, let's see how it goes, and it's taken really well. And the community has really rallied around the development. The rest of those are projects that we either manage or are affiliated with. On the right-hand side, you can see that there are malls, including Big Creek Crossing, that we manage. Retail is also a part of what we do. In a lot of these cases, we work for a third party. In Hayes, I really want to make clear and help you understand, we work for a third party who owns the mall. So in Kearney, for example, we've been able to completely renovate the mall, and it's 100% occupied. We work towards what the landlord is willing to do. In this case, in Big Creek Crossing's case, the landlord has lots of opportunities we hope that he will take advantage of, and all we can do is present those opportunities. But what that has allowed us, being in this community and working for that landlord, has allowed us to get to know your community. And so it really opened our eyes to how good it is here in Hayes and in Ellis County. And so that is what brought us to work with RMDX and try to establish a multifamily project here. We've spent quite a bit of time, in fact, probably a couple of years evaluating this market and our desire to work here. And at every turn, we keep coming back saying, this really is a great place, and we would like to do a project. So I can go through all our open air centers and describe them, but basically that's just to establish to you that we know what we're doing. We've been in business a long time. We've worked in commercial real estate for a long time, both residential and commercial, office, et cetera. So that's kind of the opening overview. And then, Will, do you have anything about the project itself you want to?
Sure. So I can provide a little background on exactly what the project plan is. Could you pull up the site plan, please? It should be a couple down. Go one more, 2 more. Floor plans, sneak peek. Well, generally speaking, there should be a site plan in there somewhere. If there's not, then it's on the title page. There, we got it. All right, so what we've got here is 136 total multifamily units spread across 8-plex buildings with exterior entry. It's a very similar product to what Dial has put up in Norfolk and in North Platte. I think they're great buildings. They're great quality, great product. I've been working with this specific construction type for quite a few years when I worked on the insurance side with Dial. But generally speaking, we'll see this overall site plan with all 136 units. And then right through the middle, you can see the dotted black line, kind of where we intend to delineate the LIHTC units from the market rate units. So the units on the north side and on the west side will be 88 fully LIHTC units for 60% AMI, 50% AMI, and 30% AMI, with the majority of those units being in the 60% range, with an average AMI of around 52.25%. And then you'll see on the bottom, we have our market rate buildings along with garages, and there are some other subsidies included in that we intend to apply for that will allow us to maybe construct those even more affordably and kind of keep the rents even more suppressed, more affordable as much as we can. So generally speaking, on the southern part, we intend to use the Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credit, which is a moderate income housing tax credit offered by the KHRC. We have already applied for that as of last Friday. We expect to hear back in the next several weeks. And that is a restrictive tax credit that restricts tenants to 60% AMI to 150% AMI. And to give you a general idea of how much that might be for an individual who's looking to rent one of these apartments, in Ellis County, that's generally speaking 60% is going to be at the 40,000-ish range, and then that 150% is going to be, on the higher end of 5 figures. So moderate income being a pretty big range, 60 to 150 for a moderate income housing credit when taken against and compared against other states' moderate income housing credits is a pretty big range. So Kansas has done, I think, a good job administrating that credit. And then paired nicely with that that KHITC tax credit is the moderate income housing grant, which we are here to present on today. And that is going to be applied for subsequently with, obviously, the blessing of Ellis County and the city of Hayes. And that is a grant that is administered to counties and cities in the state of Kansas, up to and in the amount of $650,000 to additionally assist with infrastructure and general construction costs and keeping those down. So on the southern portion, we intend to use the KHITC, monetize it, sell it off to an investor, get some equity, and put that into the deal. Again, to keep those construction costs down, the out-of-pocket cash costs down. And then we look to the northern piece, and for that northern piece, we intend to use the Kansas State Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, as well as the Federal Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, securitized, sold to an investor, or multiple investors in this case. Again, to influx equity into the deal and keep the construction costs down, and then deflate the rents and restrict them for the 15-year compliance period required under IRC Section 42. And so when we did our market study, and when that came back, we had a pretty good general idea that these 88 units would be supported in the community. And in conversations with current LIHTC managers in place in Hayes, there are wait lists for their units, and they don't have product like this. Whereas this product is new. It's not to say that there isn't anything nice, because there's plenty of nice housing in Hayes, but this is brand new, and it's my impression that there isn't a whole lot of new construction going on out here. We also will be offering more amenities than I think are currently available, and we think that we can offer the clubhouse, community gym, pool, dog park, things of that like. So generally speaking, I think it's just a pretty solid project. The market study suggests that the city and the community can support the 136 units. So we look forward to working in the community, and RMDX has not worked in Kansas as of yet, but we are excited. We have a passion for greater America, so I think that this is going to be a great partnership for us, the City of Hayes, County of Ellis, and Dial.
Okay. Questions?
The only question I have, and I may have missed it, how long has this study been going on?
The market study?
Uh-huh.
It was engaged, I'll say, the market study was engaged, I believe, in May.
Okay.
It was delivered to us last Friday on the 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Burgess?
So on the moderate housing income grant, you applied, or the city of Hayes has supported one already, and so you can get one from the city and one from the county. Is that correct? Is it the same project, different projects?
Yes, so technically it's different projects. So the northern portion would be, call it phase 1, and the southern portion would be phase 2.
Okay.
We do intend to apply for the moderate income housing grant on both the behalf of the County of Ellis and of the City of Hayes. How exactly that's going to pair with the LIHTC credit, we're still working on. But definitely for the lower portion, the southern portion, we definitely intend to apply for the moderate income housing grant, just because of how well it meshes with the Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credit, for which we've already sent an application.
Yeah, so that application, which you have in here is, that from the city was early last week or so. So the application that you'd look for the county at some point would be for 2025, or would it still be for 2024?
Sure, I understand. So the Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credit and the Moderate Income Housing Credit, or Moderate Income Housing Grant, excuse me, are separate applications. So we have already applied for the KHIC-TC tax credit as of last Friday. That's applied for by builders or developers and then securitized and sold off to, companies with state tax liability. Whereas the Moderate Income Housing Grant has not been released yet. The application has not yet been released. It has been moved that it will be released this fall, the application date and the application materials. And then at that time, we will look to apply for it on the behalf of the City of Hayes and on behalf of the County of Ellis.
Okay. And it kind of says that's a competitive grant, so our support as a county can really only go to one project. If there's another group that comes in and also is applying for that grant, we have to make a decision one way or the other of a group to support. Am I correct? We can't support multiple groups looking at that grant.
Might be a better question addressed to the KHRC directly, and I can reach out to them with regard to that. I don't see necessarily why you couldn't support two projects and apply for two projects, but there is a maximum allocation amount for counties with populations greater than 25,000 of $8 million per application round. So just kind of depending on who applies for it, it's just going to be whichever project is best, is requesting the least amount of money per unit. The KHRC will make that decision with regard to the competitiveness of the tax credit and the grant.
Okay. Couple of questions regarding the management side of it. Being as you're doing some work already in the area. So there's the DP, is that the management side, not the construction side? Is that correct, the way I understand it?
Right. DP Management will be the residential manager.
Okay.
And we are a licensed broker in Kansas, so that isn't an issue. The construction, at this point, we've used the same construction company in North Platte, for example, in Norfolk. We're in communication with them and are very hopeful that they're going to be our partner on this one as well. They've got experience in building this product. They execute very well. One of the reasons why North Platte has asked us to build a third phase is because, and in fact, just to go down that path a little bit, the property we're looking at now is a commercial property right next to where we built, but the need has proven to be so good that they're asking us to continue building. There was another potential project that was considered in that county, and that developer was unable to execute. And so they came back to us because we'd proven that we could execute and at a high level and remove that risk from what they were trying to accomplish. So here in Hayes, we think we'll be able to execute very well and get it built according to what we're planning to do. We've got the team put together, and you can see the references on here too. Our architect, Dave Johnson, and then Chris Brester, the principal of the company that we've used, Brester Construction. One of the benefits of being in the community for as long as we have been, since 2006, is that our local staff is very familiar with who works here, and they know how to point us in the right direction when we need a contractor for one thing or another. And we think that synergy is going to help us again just make this thing work very effectively. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, it kind of leads me into the next one is, so we have the investment portion, which is the RMDX, if I'm correct. How will that sustain going into the future? Is this an investment firm that'll sell off? I mean, we don't want to see something come in, develop, sell off, and turn for the worse?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I describe Dial, and I think we've been very clear in our partnership with RMDX, as a build or buy and hold company. We are not merchant developers.
Okay.
We're not to come into a community that we've been in for a long time and build and then flip that's not our MO. We're here for the long haul. Kearney, for example, the mall there we built in 1984, still own it.
Okay.
Bettendorf Regency Apartments is actually the same format. It's an 8-plex complex that again was built in 3 phases in the late 90s. Still own it. It's pretty rare for us to let something go.
Okay.
Yeah. I would add, I grew up in Kansas, so I mean this is kind of personal to me. So I've wanted to do this. My partners here know that I like Kansas. I want to continue working in Kansas. So I would add that little bit of personal color to it. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm just curious, on a new phase of the whole project or the scope. So, okay. Any
So
further questions?
If I'm understanding this correct, you got something like this in Kearney, correct? Or is
No.
it just the mall?
Kearney was just the mall.
Okay.
Actually, we do have apartments in Kearney, now that I think about it. I wasn't a participant in the construction of those, but they were built in the late 90s as well, and we still own them. So
What location is that?
that's the Stratford Apartments on 22nd.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I would also add, I mean, we have more land. We're building this with the idea that if it continues to work well, kind of like in North Platte, we may add to it. We're not intending to go anywhere.
Okay. Who would then be responsible? Are you going to maintain the control and run it through the DP management side and do the maintenance through the DP side? Is that how that'll go, or is that going to be outsourced to local contractors on the maintenance?
Well, maintenance, usually what we do is we hire our own maintenance staff. The only place where we don't do that is in Omaha. We've created a maintenance company, but it's essentially our staff. Everywhere else, we usually have a manager, a leasing agent, depending on the size of the project. Right now, in this phase, we might have a manager and a part-time leasing agent, and then one maintenance person to do unit turns. If it continues to grow, if we end up adding phases down the road, we might add staff. So.
Okay. Very good. Any further? Go ahead.
If you don't, if we support the grant ultimately, and you apply, again, it's a competitive grant. We've had history, Hayes in Ellis County, we've had others apply for it, and we actually got a comment just recently. They had applied denied 4 times in a row, and then have finally got it on their 5th try. So what's your process if you apply this time, we support, and you're denied? Is it just continue to apply for it, or is the project kaput, or do you continue with the project regardless, or what's the game plan there?
I mean, I would say we're already investing money in this, so we would hope that we, hope is not a plan, but we feel really good about our application. If it is denied, we'll probably reevaluate at that point, but I don't see why we wouldn't continue to pursue it.
Okay.
We're hopeful that it won't be.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
And as far as on the management / maintenance, do you guys bring a team in, or is that hired locally here for jobs for our community?
We hire locally.
Good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Any further comments?
I think it's a good deal if we can make it happen.
We would love to work with you, and most of all, we appreciate you taking the time to ask these questions and evaluate the project. Will and I and our whole team are available. Certainly, David and there's several people who know how to get a hold of us. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate the time and the presentation here today.
Thank you.
and all your support. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we have our update on the county library initiative.
Good morning. Brandon Hines, Hayes Public Library.
Morning.
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 I talked to Commissioner Younger a couple weeks ago, and he asked me to come in and give an update. Nothing much has changed from our end of the public library since we last visited with you. We're getting the word out on some things, but I thought I'd follow up with a few questions that we've been receiving, and I think you've received a few questions as well. I think the biggest thing that we've come across is just a lack of awareness for the current structure. When we're talking to folks that are outside of Ellis and Hayes, when we approach this conversation, they generally, a lot of them don't even know that they're being taxed for libraries, and the ones that have any inkling of that generally are thinking that their taxes are going to their nearest library. So Hayes Public Library, the Ellis Public Library. So this has been good for an education, for just having these discussions and, telling them this is how it's structured. Haven't received a lot of direct feedback, people talking to me or the Hayes Public Library, and from what I've gathered from the commissioners, they haven't got a ton of feedback yet either. So if you have, I wanted to come up here and encourage folks to, if you do have questions, to reach out to me, reach out to your commissioners, our county administrator, to answer some of these questions. I think the first question that we get is how would this be governed if this thing were to pass? It goes back to this county library board, which would be established by statute, which sets that board at 5 members. And those 5 members could not be from anywhere but inside that taxing district. Hayes Public Library, the Ellis Public Library have chosen to keep their same library structure, which means in the city limits of both of those areas is the taxing district, but then also the population that makes up their library boards. So they will not be voting on this on August 6th. That 5-person board will be made up of everybody outside of Hayes and Ellis and like Victoria, anywhere out in the rural Ellis County area. The one question we get is, why not a county-wide library? Why would it be structured like this? Well, these were decisions that were made by the Ellis Public Library Board and the Hayes Public Library Board this spring on whether or not to opt in to this potential new model. And with that, I think part of it comes to control of their local library. They want to have a say in what their libraries offer, how they're funded, because they would control the taxes that create the revenue for those libraries. I think another question that we get is, will Hayes Public Library, Ellis Public Library have to close because of this potential new library? And absolutely not. Again, those would remain under the control of the existing library boards. I know our library, the Hayes Public Library Board, intends to operate the same and work in conjunction with potential, county library. I also wanted to just update with the funding as presented in this spring. Funding in Ellis County has been going down over the last couple of years. The budget that was presented to the state library in June saw that happen again. Another $10,000 will be cut next year from the Hayes Public Library, which will increase that amount of money that does not come back to Ellis County. So in 2023, Ellis County received $100,000 from the regional library system. This year it's $90,000. The budget that was presented to the State Library Board last month was $80,000. We anticipate that to diminish for the next 2 years. So by 2027, the entire amount of money to the Hayes Public Library would be $60,000, with an additional about $10,000 to the other libraries in the county. So it'd be $70,000. Taxes or the amount levied is slowly going up, and valuations in Ellis County continue to go up as other counties continue to decrease. So it's going to be about $250,000 by 2027 that's leaving the county and not being returned to the Hayes and Ellis public libraries and the school libraries that receive. Each one of the schools receive $500 a year from the Central Kansas Library System. So those are the high-level things that I wanted to present. If the commissioners have any questions that they'd like me to speak to, I'd be happy to.
The question that I'm,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the questions that I have received, are we building a new library? Is this for a new library building? Would you like to speak to that some?
I will answer that as best I can. The control of this new library is up to this new library board. So there'll be a 5-member board. The vision and what the Hayes Public Library feels is the most reasonable thing to do would be to contract with the existing libraries. That means we're already providing these services. For example, we have about 600 cardholders in Victoria alone, so that Hayes Public Library is already serving the county. How we do that in the future, I think the idea of a physical presence in Victoria makes a lot of sense. That would be, again, up to the new library board and how that contract would play out. I don't think our vision, and can't speak for the commissioners or a future library board that's not created, is to go in and build an entire library. The reason that you have to create a library is this is the process for withdrawing from a regional library system. This is the path that we have worked through over the last 4 or 5 years with council, that the county library would be created and then they would control those dollars. You could contract with the school libraries, but you, the future county library board, could contract with the school libraries, the existing public libraries, or offer services how they see fit. But it would be controlled by a 5-member board, and that board would be appointed by the county commissioners. They would be, I believe, 4-year appointments, and then the control would be from the county commission would be that they would be appointing those boards. So I can't say that a new library is absolutely not going to be built. I don't think that's the vision, but I do think there's potential for maybe over in Victoria and to extend that services. That's what those county library dollars would be for, is to extend services outside of Hayes and Ellis. We think that would really open up what the Hayes Public Library could do if they contracted, and the Ellis Public Library if they contracted with a future county library board.
Okay.
That is the same question that I've been receiving, that are we building a new library? So you answered that. Thank you.
Commissioner Burgess?
I don't really have any questions at this point. I think I'm just here to encourage people to vote on it and make their decision on, what direction they want. If they want the current direction as how their tax dollars are spent, supplementing other county libraries, that's fine. If they want to make a decision about where their tax dollars are spent locally, then vote that direction. But I do want to encourage people to vote because it's a primary and anybody can vote on it. So whether you're unaffiliated, a Republican, a Democrat, Libertarian, or whatever, I know in primaries, especially in Ellis County, it's heavily Republican. So Democrats and unaffiliated typically don't vote unattached or unaffiliated don't vote in primaries anyway. But because this question is across the county, please go vote on it. And again, in primaries, there's a lot of uncontested contests, so people tend to not vote in those either, just because there's not a lot to pick from. But again, this question is going to be on there for the county residents, the outside the city of Hayes and Ellis, and so the Victoria residents and the county residents. So again, it's not a question, it's just encouraging people to go make a decision on this. Before you make that vote, then yes, ask questions but this is the opportunity. We get asked all the time, well, what if this was put on that ballot? What if that was put on a ballot? I bet if it was put on a ballot, we'd make a different decision. Here's an opportunity to make a decision on your tax dollars, your mill levy, your property values, on how you want your tax dollars spent on library services. So that's all I can ask is people to go vote and make a decision. And once the decision's made, then we'll operate under that decision.
And I believe today is the last day to register to vote.
Yeah, I believe so, Bobby.
Correct.
I was just going to have our clerk explain that to everybody. So like Commissioner Burgess said, everybody get out and vote. But Bobby, if you would explain everybody and let them No, so.
Okay. Bobby Drowning, County Clerk Election Official. Today is the last day to register to vote here in the county office building. We're open till 4, so you can get it to me by then. If you do it online, it has to be dated before midnight tonight, and then we get them via email to us from the state. So those kind of applications will be accepted until then. And then early voting, did you want me to talk about the early voting where people, okay. Early voting starts next week, Monday, the 22nd, here at the Admin Center, 8 to 4, all day, Monday through Friday. It closes on noon on August 5th. Hold on, I want to make sure I got my dates correct. August 5th at noon is the last day to vote early. And then I do offer Saturday voting August 3rd from 9 to 1 here at the Admin Center for anybody to come in during Saturday. They can't make it through the week. And then on Election Day, obviously, at your polling location. And if you want to call my office at 785-628-9410, if you have any questions about your voter registration, if you're registered to vote, or where your polling location is, just give me a call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bobby.
Okay. At this time, we did have somebody from the public that wished to talk on the library topic. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Joe Wilkerson. Most of my questions are directed towards Brandon, or he could answer them, but
Okay.
I'll present them here. But who is the person responsible for putting this question on the ballot?
That would be us, the
Commission.
commission here.
Commission?
Yes.
Okay. And then everyone I've talked to in the county, no one knows what's going on. And after listening to the last meeting and this one too, I still don't know, because we don't know if there's going to be a building. We don't know what's going on. So no one knows how to vote. So that's one of our questions.
So I guess I'll answer that. Some of that we don't know. We don't know about a building and how some of this will go until the vote. So unfortunately, if it's going to depend on who is recommended to be on the board and approved to be on the board. The approval will go through the commissioners here. But whether or not how to go forward, we have to understand if the county wants to first withdraw and move forward.
Okay, and then that's like a 2-year process, is that correct?
That is correct. And at
Okay.
the end of that 2-year process, it's still up to the state, I believe. Is that correct, Brandon? It's still up to the state whether or not we can actually withdraw.
Correct. And then the 250,000 or 300,000 that we're paying taxes today, we could never sustain a library, a physical library building for that, not with insurance, wages, everything else. So that's not even a possibility. So I'm wondering, everyone is asking, what are we going to do? And
Well, then they would just, the board would make the decisions on how to use that money to contract services. We already have libraries in Ellis County. We have a Hayes Library and the Ellis Library, city libraries. We have school libraries. So the board could take that money and then say, those libraries would apply to this board and say, hey, we want some funding for these programs, for these books, for Hoopla, for digital services. And that board would decide to provide county library services. We are going to contract with City of Ellis Library and the City of Hayes Library. We're not going to, they could make that decision. We're not going to build a library. We're going to contract so those libraries can provide those services. And we're going to provide, ideally here, more funding because we have a larger, we have that pot of money that the taxpayers are already paying. But right now, it's going to Central Kansas Library Services, and then they're divvying that pot of money back out at less and less amount. So now the board gets that full pot of money to decide, what are we going to do with it here locally? And so I think ideally, the vision is they would just contract with Ellis and Hayes in the city, in the school libraries.
okay, so my understanding then is, at this time, all we're doing is applying to withdraw. And then the county would, if we was successful, the county would get that money, and then the board that you chose, they would decide how to move forward.
That is correct.
The board itself would be its own taxing district. The county would not get the money. The county It wouldn't be part of our budget. It's kind of like the rural fire, which it's not a great example as far as because we still work on, but the rural fire district is its own
Entity.
So
Okay.
this library board would also be its own entity with the ability to set their own levy up to a certain point. We kind of have to work on that a little bit too. Kind of setting some parameters on, what they could set it at, but they are their own taxing entity at that point. And
That makes sense then. There's still some unanswered questions, but not sure what they're going to be yet, because until we get to that point and our hands tied, if we withdraw, we're going to have to do something according to law to
Correct.
fulfill
Well, we
these
will have to
obligations.
we will have to establish a library of some sort, and that could be as much as an office inside of the school library, and then contract through.
Okay.
So that's as minimal as it could be, and unfortunately, the sky's the limit on what they can do then. But there is control. There's controls through us as commissioners, and through the approval of the board, and through you as the public. And if the public wishes to have somebody on or off, they can petition to have that done.
Okay. And then my understanding is you're going to try to keep the mill at 1.5 or less, correct?
So,
that's the vision, so.
yeah. So what is the mill that's currently levied? Is that a
1.5
1.5?
for library service. And you do have to have something, that's why, again, the state becomes involved, because everybody has to have library services. So the tax can't just go away. The county residents still have to pay a levy for library services, and that's where this decision is coming, is how do they want those library services provided? So, but then, as a local board, potentially, they're the ones, again, establishing that levy. But they would be under the same revenue neutral rules that all elected or official county government things are. So their budget has to pass before the public, and they're under those same revenue neutral rules as the rest of us. And they can exceed it or not. So those are kind of the things, just like other cemetery boards, rural fire, other kind of taxing and governmental entities.
All right. That's all I have.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
I
Joe.
appreciate your
Thank you, Joe.
concerns.
If
I
I
think-
may, another,
Go ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I don't know, it may help Joel a little bit, just for another way to look at all this, and it might help explain some of the things, but if you look at the overall, the taxing, the amount of money that local property tax is being collected outside of the city of Hayes and the city of Ellis for a library, roughly 300,000 is being collected. That money is all being sent to Great Bend, and then that money is being distributed through 16 or 17 different counties. And of that 300,000 that we're collecting locally and sending to Great Bend, we're only getting about not even half of it back. So of that 300,000 that's going out, we're only getting half of that back to go to the city of Ellis Library and the city of Victoria, or the city of Hayes Library. So the goal is to increase services for our local residents, no matter where you're at, but also increase the funding. So if we would be able to keep that $300,000 locally after the process would change, part of the concern that we all hear is how's it going to look? What's it going to be? It's just like this commission couldn't tell you what the next commission could vote on or how they would look. So if it passes, the 5-member board would be created, and then they would start making those decisions on how that $300,000 would be spent. And that's why this commission or myself or anybody can't speak to how that funding would look, because those people aren't appointed yet. So say, for instance, you would be interested to be on the board, and you knew 4 other people, they could all apply to be on the board, and then they would start making those decisions if everything would to go through. And I would confirm there's been no discussion on building a library. That would cost millions of dollars, and that money would have to sit there for decades before there'd be enough money just to build the facility. So no library. It may just be, like you say, an office in the new Victoria St. John's facility that may be identified as the office for the library, which could host some books that could rotate back and through, something simple. But that's why it's hard to explain how it would work if there's no board appointed yet. They're the ones that would make those decisions on what's best for that money being collected and staying in Ellis County for our local tax purposes, for our local residents at a higher level of service than before. Does that help a little bit more?
Okay, Mr. Chair, if I could,
Sure.
since we're talking about new buildings, if I could have Scott come up for a couple minutes and just explain about the new jail that we are not building, that the news media got a hold of and put it on television.
Scott Brown, Ellis County Sheriff. Commissioner Younger approached me prior to the meeting and said that he had received some phone calls, and probably some of the other commissioners may have. So perhaps I didn't state well enough that this is us preparing for the future, which could be 15, 20 years down the road before a facility could be built, because the commission's idea is, and I don't mean to speak for you, is to start putting money aside so we're not taxing our residents of Ellis County so much, and creating a strategic plan so that we're able to fulfill the needs of Ellis County in regards to placing people within the jail that need to be there and preparing and keeping a safe community for us. So unfortunately, I've not received any phone calls in regards to it. I had the opportunity to speak to a club yesterday in regards to it. They were very much in support of it, and they understood what our goal was and that it wasn't going to occur within the next 5 years. So I apologize for apparently not explaining it. I encourage everyone that is listening and that is very interested in the jail, and it is a lot of money, and we're all concerned about that, to please listen to August the 13th, which will be the justice planners here presenting the feasibility study to the public and to the commissioners. I think that will help clear up where we're going with this. And then at that point in time, then we will have many, many meetings on how we want to proceed. But there is nothing determined at this time in how we're going to proceed. Is that correct, commissioners?
That is correct.
I hope this clears it up, and I am open to people giving me a call. I'm happy to discuss it with them. But I would wait until after that feasibility study occurs, because there is just no plan. We just know in the future we're going to need it. So again, I apologize for not apparently explaining that well enough during our last meeting.
I mean, I appreciate the apology, but it's just people take it, and it's, no matter what business you're doing, you still have to plan for it. And like you say, it may be 15, it may be 20 years out. Because like I say, they're expensive, and our tax dollars are high enough to everyone. So
I think we all agree it's better to be proactive than reactive, and that's what we're trying to do here. So,
okay.
any questions or anything, commissioners?
I have none at this time. I appreciate you coming back up and clarifying.
Sure.
Thank you, Scott.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, Michael, did you have something? Okay. Okay. Next item on our agenda is the election ballots.
Okay. Bobby Dreiling, County Clerk, Election Official. Today, I'm just asking for a motion to destroy election ballots per KSA 25-2708B. In 22 months, the county clerk shall destroy any primary ballots from the August of 2022 election. Those were kept for 22 months in the vault, and when that time comes up, I am to destroy them. And then insofar as local races, city school, bond elections, I have 6 months to destroy those. Obviously, I just wait until my 22 months come up, so I don't have to make trips out to the land, what do you call it, where they bail them up. So anyway, I'm asking just for a motion to destroy the 388 school bond election, the 49 school bond election, the 2022 primary, and the 2023 city school election, and to appoint a Democrat and a Republican to watch the process. And on that, I have asked Eugene Rupp as my Democrat, and Republican Mike Weber to join us to head out there, and they will watch the destruction to make sure it's done properly. Do you have any questions? Pretty simple.
Any questions?
On the website, how long do we keep like results up? How long Or can somebody request results dating back?
Yes, on our election, we have results. I don't think they're way back,
Yeah.
but I don't even know what year we have,
Seems like
Commissioner.
it goes to vote.
If they want anything later, they can come in, and I have the original abstract
Okay.
that we can always look at into our book that the commissioners sign off on with the official results.
Okay.
Have you seen this process done before?
Many times,
Okay.
yes. So Buildings and Grounds, Greg and Keith will load up the ballots.
Okay.
And then I go out with them along with the people that are going to watch the process.
Okay.
And so, yes, it's been done many times in my 11 years.
Are these ballots shredded and then baled, or how are they actually physically destroyed?
They are put on a conveyor and then rolled up and put into a bale.
Okay,
So they're not shredded, they're baled up.
okay.
Is this something that, when they are loaded up on the conveyor, that a picture could be taken or several and then display it? Is that legal, Bill, to do that, just so on our next meeting?
Yeah, I can do that.
Everybody can see that?
Right,
Because
okay.
there's some out there that, think that,
I can show the whole I can even
Okay.
take a video if you want, because, they're hauled out there and we dump them on there and they're baled up.
okay, very
Okay.
good.
Be good.
I'll
Thank
do
you.
that.
Well, I'll move the commission allow the county clerk to destroy the ballots in the following elections: 2022 USD 388 school bond, 2022 USD 489 school bond, 2022 primary, and the 2023 city school, and to appoint Democrat Eugene Rupp and Republican Mike Weber to oversee the process.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You.
Okay. Next topic is improvements at Ellis County Fairgrounds. Darren?
Good morning, Commissioners. Darren Myers, County Administrator. The next item on your agenda is to consider some improvements out at the Ellis County Fairgrounds. The Ellis County Fair Board and the promoter for the RPM Speedway have identified several items out at the fairgrounds that need to be addressed, and this is kind of the first step to get some of those fixed. The first item on there is there has been some replacement over the years for the Shank and Unrein buildings to replace the rooftop units. That's the HVAC units that control the buildings. We have replaced 3 of those over the years, and the final 3 are getting to the lifespan of they're out of date and can't be replaced. They have the R22 refrigerant system in them. So switching those out before something actually breaks and not able to be fixed, before somebody has an event out there or a wedding, etc. It was kind of the thought process with that. And then going out and getting those bids to replace them to match the other 3 units on those buildings. Like I said, there's 6 total. The second item for consideration was the walk-in cooler out at the concession stands, which is I believe the only building with the red roof out there, just to the north of the grandstands. Just for some history, that building was removed from the area of approximately just by the West Dillons. It was the old C-Mart building. That building was disassembled there and moved out to the fairgrounds decades ago, and with that was their walk-in cooler that they used to refrigerate all their sodas and whatever they had, just like a regular convenience store. When that building was moved, that walk-in cooler was also moved, and so that shows you a little bit of date of how old that cooler is. Decades, probably as old as I am, but we are getting to the point where it continues to have issues, break down, and we're spending money several times a year. I think it stopped working twice, and we've had to have the technicians out there twice to repair it this year. So we had some bids put together to look at replacing that as well. I'm not sure what all else that I'll discuss briefly, I guess, on the other 2. The roof damages out there at the fairgrounds, and hopefully after last night's storm, we don't have more. But the roof of that same building has previously been inspected by K-Camp, and we're waiting on the adjusters to get us back the reports, because it does have some roof damage where the metal roof, the seams have lifted and peeled apart. The south part of that roof is an EPDM black flat roof, where the seams have actually split apart previously, which allows water intrusion into the second story of that building. So the roof masters have been out to look at that, as well as the channel that is around the windows, which, to my understanding, were when they were installed or installed backwards, which doesn't allow the water to drain properly, which is allowing water to drain in the buildings and around the windows. So we're still working on that one to get that fixed. Like I say, as soon as we know more what the insurance is going to cover, we can get estimates back and bring that to the commission. And then there's been previous concerns out at the fairgrounds in that same building on ADA compliance for the restrooms. As of last week, we had a contractor come out and tell us what needed to be done, what could be done, and their suggestion was just to allow the fair board to make those fixes instead of having a contractor pay for it. So once again, the fair board graciously worked last week as they were prepping for the fair and got all the ADA compliance issues in the bathrooms taken care of. So that part is behind us. Getting back to the agenda item, the purchase order today is to replace the 3 final rooftop units on the Schenck building, and then the walk-in cooler refrigerator at the concession stand. Is there any questions?
The cooler that come from C-Mart, I happened to grab onto one of them when they changed hands, so that was in 85, if that answers anything. So, and it was already there at that time, so it's got its life on it, a lot of life.
Okay. In regards to the rooftop units, which bid are we looking at accepting?
I'm sorry, there were several in there. That's the one from Almond. They were the lowest bid. Second lowest was Reliable. There's a difference of about $200 or $300. And after we look, I don't think we'll be eligible, but Mr. Profit with Almond Company stated that we may be eligible for some rebates on the units by installing those, but I'm not sure if a government entity will be allowed those rebates, but after they're installed, we'll apply for them and see if we can get those.
Okay. Now, is that just a direct replacement for similar quality of what's there, or is
I think they're rated at 15 or 16 SEER units. They're the same units that we've replaced with the other, same type of refrigerant, same size, and they'll basically fit right on the curbing, just as the other ones do.
okay?
Shouldn't be any major modifications needed.
Okay. Well, the only reason I asked that is because I noticed in one of the bids we could go maybe on the more of an upgrade side with the variable rate unit, which I know is more expensive, but I would assume would be cost savings in the end. I don't know if that would.
Could be. We didn't look that far. We just looked at the low bids for what was equivalent to what we placed on there, just to try to get everything the same.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I lost my spot. There it is. The roof, is that for Unrein Schenck buildings, or what is that for?
The roof is on the concession stand, which
On
is
the
that
concessions.
building just on the north side of the grandstands,
Okay,
kind of between the grandstands and the rodeo arena.
okay. And then with the AC, as you kind of brought up, if there's an event out there, a wedding or something like that, and they go out, I guess is there a responsibility at the county level or for the fairgrounds that they can't hold their event now, or it's so uncomfortable during the event? Refunds, or is there a process that they can be made correct if something were to happen?
I think that would be on a case-by-case basis, and we could work based on the request of that. Because it would be, if it's in the winter, the AC wouldn't really matter much, but same thing with the heat. But I believe that with the recommendation of the fair manager, we could bring it back to the commission if there needed to be a rebate or a refund. There is a clause in there based on cancellation, but I believe there's an actual clause in that contract that if something like that were to happen, they wouldn't be penalized for it.
Any further discussion, Commissioner?
No, like I say, the flat roof, yeah, that needs to get, or we're gonna be looking for more issues down the road, so.
I believe on that option, they're gonna give us two proposals. One is just to replace it as a flat roof with a new EPDM roof, but the other option, which would be a little bit more, is to tear off the EP. Either way, they'll tear off the old, but they'd like to put a little bit of a pitch on that roof to shed the water a little better. That's gonna cost a little bit more to get it done.
Similar to a discussion we had with the jail or the courthouse.
Yeah, it's just somewhat of a tapered system. It's just not the area is about the size of where we're sitting at, so it's just a very small little
Got it.
area and has a air condenser setting on it.
Okay. Okay.
And the walk-in that we're purchasing is going to be about the same, or is it gonna be larger? What?
It's about the same. I
Okay.
don't, that's getting a little bit into my wheelhouse, but I had the fair board out there and it seemed very easy and simple replacement.
Okay.
Because it's just hanging in. It's not the whole walk-in cooler. It's just the refrigerant
Just the-
unit that's
okay.
hanging from the ceiling.
Okay,
Uh,
so
it
just
was-
the condenser and the compressor, okay.
It sounds like they've made those changes in other units. There's probably similar type units like that they're putting in other facilities. From the conversation that I had, that's what
Okay.
it sounded like.
Okay.
Okay, I move to approve PO 7811 for repairs to the shank rooftop units and the walk-in cooler at the RPM concession stand.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
They gonna do the work of this right away or wait till after summer and?
I did ask on the lead time on the units, and they weren't very long out. Sounds like they're going to be easily accessible, so everything should be able to switch. Like a rooftop unit can be done in a day.
Okay.
And the walk-in cooler seemed to like it would be it's just hanging in the cooler, so they may have to run new condensate lines and such. But I would assume it could also be done within a day. And then we'd have to make preparations for all the food and everything that are in that cooler as that gets cleaned or swapped out as well.
Okay. Next, we have ARPA funds topic.
For the ARPA funds, as the commission knows, this was money that was through the COVID relief process from the federal government that was passed down to Ellis County. And these funds have to be allocated or encumbered by the end of 2024. And some of these projects have been on the list previous, but we've also started to finish up most of the projects that have been on there, a lot of the larger projects. So as we start wrapping up 2024, whatever money that we have left within that ARPA fund, which is a couple $100,000, needs to be spent. Otherwise, if we don't have it spent or encumbered, like in a purchase order, we would have to send that money back, which I'm guessing the commissioner would rather not have to do that. So as we get down there, it's kind of, we're getting into some of the lower tier projects that have been proposed by staff. Some of these actually items on here today come from recommendations from the county commission. So when I go through some of these, I might, Mike Liker's going to come up, and Justin and Danita can, because these are some of these projects are within their departments. So I will let them speak to their conversations and explanations of what the need is for those. So with that, if it's okay, we can start off with the intercom at the landfill. This was something Commissioner Younger brought up in regards to his experience to not having great communications. So I'll let Justin speak to that project.
Good morning. Justin Craig, Environmental Services Director. So,
Morning.
Mr. Younger was out there and kind of experienced our speaker intercom system they have in the scale house and kind of recommended that we look into improving that. So we kind of partnered with IT and HOPS with some of the projects they're doing down here, and they recommended this Avio kit to replace it. This speaker system was designed for bank drive-throughs, way stations, truck stops. I reached out to the manufacturer just to kind of get some more info on it. He gave me some assurances that it is noise canceling. He said it's not a sound boost, so you're still going to pick up some background noise, but it's designed for heavier trucks to be out there for that communication. It's full duplex, so you can speak back and forth. It turns on automatically when they pull up. The stand that's on the outside is designed that it can be placed on a mount and raised up. If you go from a pickup to a trash truck, you can raise it up there. I think we'll probably start with it on the ground just because most of our big trucks that come through there, we don't even need to talk to them. We know who they are. They point up or down where they're going, so we don't have to communicate with them. They can use the microphone or the headset. I'm sure they'll probably prefer to use the microphone out there just to communicate back and forth. You can mute it from the inside. It will turn off after 3 minutes, which is more than enough time to get somebody in there. But if you had any other questions?
Well, I'm glad you addressed that, and whoever else has been involved in it, IT and his team, that it did need to. That was a terrible thing when I experienced that. But anyhow, I appreciate all the work you've done for it.
The current system, that was carryover from the previous scale house?
This one, we replaced it. Last year, we tried a different system. We replaced that one out there, and it can work from time to time. It seemed like it was more designed to be something like a walk-up window, more so than a vehicle to pull up next to it. If there's not a lot of background noise, it can work, but out there's backhoes, trucks going by all the time, so it picks up a lot of that and interferes with everything.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any comment?
No, thanks.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
The next item for discussion are AEDs for the rescue trucks in Hayes, Ellis, and Victoria. This item was brought up by fire department staff in regards to the change. Should be happening this week where when EMS is paged out to high acuity calls in the county, cardiac arrest, trauma events, somebody not breathing, that the fire department will be paged out to assist as well. That'll help in those more rural parts of Ellis County, not America, just Ellis County. But there's a possibility that those trucks could get there on scene first. If Victoria is covering over in Hayes or Ellis is in Hayes, they could have those units there. So that was brought up and wasn't originally on the list, but it's something that we presented with the executive team and added to this. And the AEDs that were priced were done by Danita and EMS to ensure that they are the same AEDs that work with their cardiac monitors, the Zoll monitors in their ambulances. So,
Okay.
Don't know if there's any questions on that piece for me.
And when did that go into effect where the fire is going to be dispatched? Was that with our new
Possibly this week. We're making sure all the radio programming is complete. That's why I kicked my phone here a second ago. They were calling me. They probably don't know we're in a meeting, but we get all the radio programming complete first, make sure that's behind us. They're still got to work in the emergency operations center and finish up some touches in dispatch and a couple of the departments throughout the county, and then they'll start working on those changes. So maybe this week.
Okay. Very good. Any questions?
Looks good.
A comment, my ex-employer, when we had the AEDs on one of the trucks there, so I think that's a good idea to have it on.
I guess a little bit of history. I don't know if I shared this with any of the commissioners, but the first AED that the fire department actually got was donated by the family of one of the relatives from EMS. Her dad passed away in rural Ellis County, and there was not an AED out there, so after he passed, they donated the money to buy an AED and put it on the truck, and now we have actually 5, but this will get us throughout all the companies in Ellis County.
Very good.
So does that happen very often, that the fire department beats? Okay, but it only takes one time. Okay. Thank you.
And we do have all of our 100% of the firefighters are trained for first aid, AED, and CPR use. So I think we have about 20 EMTs on the county fire department. So they can make a difference. Like say if it happens one time, so moving into, I guess, EMS, the next item is to Danita's request to add an additional CPR Lucas device. I think she was looking at me, she wanted me to talk, so she didn't have to.
Well, let me make one last comment on that. From experience, just a little over a year ago, the fire department was first on scene. So, yes, it can make a big difference.
Yep, it was down there in Shinshin.
Yep. So, small towns, small communities like that, Shinshin, Munger, the firefighters are first on hand. So, they can make a big difference, and that one life will pay for it. So.
Very, very true, very
It
true.
is. It's just a simple little device that doesn't cost very much just to
Correct.
save a life. They're awesome.
Correct. So, sorry, Danita, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was just going to ask for one more Lucas device. That's the CPR device that we put on patients when they need CPR and helps free up our hands and allows us to push meds and do the breathing and everything else for them. We currently just have one ambulance that does not have it. And so we've been doing a lot of shuffling around here lately. And it's kind of easy to forget everything you need to switch around if it's missing on other trucks. So it just would make our trucks all complete and allow us to have that and not to forget that. So.
And this is a mobile device. We can take it and remove it when we
Yes.
change out trucks and
Yep.
get new
Yeah,
trucks.
Yes, yep, that'll get moved out.
Okay.
Are we still waiting on ambulances?
Yes.
I don't recall. Okay.
August,
An update on
August
that?
10th.
August 10th, so
Is the
not-
delivery date.
Okay.
Okay.
And, yeah, I don't know what else to tell you about that. The second one is still looking into 2025, he said.
Okay.
Okay.
And that is the Stryker brand, is that correct, or am I thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
They
that's
need to
Stryker.
put dollar signs through their S on there because that stuff
Yes,
is
they do.
expensive.
Yes.
But it does what it needs to do, so.
There's just two companies, it's them and Zoll, and we have used the Zoll before on a trial basis, and it was terrible for the patients.
Okay.
And so this one is the best that we like.
Good. And that's what we need to do. We need to serve our community with the best, so, okay.
I have
Very
no
good.
comment. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Danita.
The next two items kind of include this room and the next, and Mike and Lori with IT have been doing the heavy lifting on this. I think this was kind of originated from Commissioner Liker's request to have some updates in this room, so I'll let Mike speak to this one.
Mike Liker, Ellis County IT Director. The first item is the training room, which is the room adjacent to this one. Since we divided this room up into two, we created a training room, and we used existing equipment to equip that room. We had a projector and a screen that we reallocated to that room, but they were not of best quality anymore. They were used. So this proposal for that training room is to replace the screen and the projector and to put in a sound mixer to separate the speakers, because we use the existing speakers that went all the way back from this room. So we can separate those two and control it strictly from the training room. Before, there wasn't really a way to divide them up well and feed audio back there without having it come in here. So that first proposal is for that equipment, a screen, projector, and the mixer, the sound mixer. For this room, there were three proposals, kind of a entry level, mid level, and a long-term level. The entry level would be simply to tune the audio system that we have. When we redid this room, some of the audio, we experienced some audio issues with some of the microphones and the speakers. So that first proposal is just to replace the sound mixer with an entry-level sound mixer, and to replace the camera that displays the podium here, because it is a lower quality image that we're producing. So that would be that first proposal. What I'm calling the intermediate proposal would be to step up from that base proposal, and it would be a higher-end mixer system, and a couple of different cameras, and what else did we have in there? Other sound equipment, mostly focusing on the sound and the video, but that would kind of get us up to where we should be today. And then there's that third proposal, which would put us in this room with audiovisual for the next, I don't like to go out more than 5 years in IT, but it would allow us to do more things should we decide to expand our AV product that we put out. And that would include a higher end mixer so that we could have more digital control of the microphones. And it would allow us to tune the microphones so that it takes the highs and the lows out, brings the lows up, takes the highs down. So it adjusts depending on, I'm kind of a louder speaker. It might pull my audio down. If someone who's more soft-spoken comes up, might bring theirs up to even it all out. That would be that higher-end sound equipment. And then it would also include the ability the video would follow the speaker, so that when I'm speaking, I'm the one that's displayed in the video. If the chair is speaking, then it focuses on you and those types of things. So it's that advanced AV that allows us to have a more immersive experience for the viewers, especially on the live stream. Brings them into the room, makes them feel more immersed in the discussion and not like they're looking in the window. So that's kind of the high-level view of those three proposals. I'd stand for any questions.
So Mike, these are some of these proposals, after talking with you, some of this stuff was discussed back in 2014, 2015, when the initial rebuild of this room and the building was done.
Right.
Model.
Right. The original vision back when we decided to remodel this building from a bank into what it is today, my vision was to have it basically to where there's at least where the second proposal is, but due to cost overruns and things like that or cuts, we built what we could with what we had. But yeah, some of these, obviously the technology has improved greatly since then. Also, we did buy, quality equipment, but we didn't check all the boxes then because we just didn't have the money. So this would bring us up to that point and for the future. As the sheriff mentioned earlier, we want to try and plan for the future as well. And so this would get us, the third option would get us to the future without having to come back later in 5 years or whatever and spend more money. So
At the rapid pace that technology's moving, I mean, we're going to be there before 5 years.
Yeah, with live streaming and virtual meetings and virtual presentations being what they are, everybody's living on YouTube these days. So it is just the direction we're going.
Well, and even some of the guests that we have, where they may have a difficulty traveling here, we can bring them in virtually with some of these upgrades.
I will mention also something I failed to mention earlier. With the upgrades that are being proposed, it allows us to better utilize the live streaming equipment that we have and the software that we have. It allows us to be more flexible and do more things as well. So
And it would also, this would also more or less give some access to the public on, say, a zoning meeting, possibly.
Yeah, essentially any meeting that happens in here, we could essentially do that.
Some of those are unattended or very low attendee, and not to put Justin on more hot seat, but it would actually give more access to the public that on topics that are being discussed.
I've heard that same comment that's going on, and like I say, hopefully we can get that Ellis County Planning Development online, and that way our people all know what's going on. So, and then how old are these cameras?
They're actually both not very old. This one was replaced due to some damage that occurred So this is actually a brand-new camera. And this one, we did pull this one off a shelf. It's right above, next to that air vent there. It's...
You're on full view.
Yeah, it's actually, we purchased it used. It is, it's probably 5, 6 years old, something like that. It was actually designed for building security and surveillance, not so much for presentation like this. So we try to, AV is not really IT's wheelhouse, but we try to do the best we can with what we've got or what we can afford. And, you know, security is something we do pretty well, but presentation graphics are not really our forte. We try and do the best we can, but and that's how we end up with that camera. We had only this one, and all the viewer could ever see is the back of this presenter's head. So we put what we had up there to get another view of the podium. So.
Okay, now on the bids, there's two different bids that are very, very similar. There's one that's lacking, I believe, a control panel. That would be the one thing that came off of, from what I could see, I guess.
Yeah, we were able to negotiate the. You're talking about the tablet?
Yes.
The tablet,
I believe a 10-inch touchscreen control.
yeah, that is, we have a similar system in another building in our emergency services training room, and they utilize a touchpad to control. In that room, it's very different than this one. They have a lot of inputs and a lot of outputs. I mean, they have like 5 or 6 different TVs, and each one can take a different feed. And so because it's the Emergency Operations Center, when it's activated, they can put up a weather map and local news and, you know, whatever. They can have 5 different things going. Here, it's pretty much, you guys are the show. So the need for that tablet isn't really necessary. So we were able to negotiate out that tablet to lower the price. All of that will be controlled from IT's control desk, basically. And that's more or less just turning it off and on. So we don't need to switch inputs so much. If we needed to, if there was somebody that wanted to come in and do something differently, we could adjust that, but that would be a one-off type of situation. So that is one thing that we were able to take out of that proposal. It's just not needed, and you know, it's why spend that money? So
Very well. Okay.
So then, I was speaking with Darren, so Vanna White behind you, she will move back to the east wall then, possibly?
that is the proposal, is to move it, because with this proposal, all of the equipment that is located in the cabinet in the hallway, those cabinets are not big enough to put the equipment, they're not deep enough. So as you can see, there's a freestanding cabinet in the back of the room now that we had in storage that is an audio-visual cabinet. So Hops said that that would be perfect. That would be where it would go. So it would make sense to move our control desk to the back of the room, kind of get out of view and out of the crowds, or in the back, so we're not distracting to what's going on in the meeting. We should be invisible for the most part. So
Very good.
yeah, it would move that desk to the back center, probably the back center of the room. And then we could have our cabling all in the wall back there.
Okay. Any discussion?
Not on that. I have some questions for Darren overall, but
Okay.
not on the AV.
I'm good.
Okay.
Anything
Thank you.
else? Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
So as far as the ARPA funds, we got 73,500 here, and then the previous that we approved for the fairgrounds was 40,000, about 105,000 total, but that's everything that's needed to be spent at this point is on ARPA funds then.
So we have, yeah, I guess maybe I could pull it up if you want to see the actual numbers. We only have, I believe, about 338,000 left that's unallocated. This would take off of that. Some of the projects, so one of the bigger projects that we've kind of held off to the end of 2024 was the replacement of laptops throughout the county for the IT department to take that load off his capital equipment fund. And that was, I believe, we had about 95,000 in there for that, but we were waiting till the very end of the year to bring that to the commission, so that way, when we ordered them, we would, technology changes so fast, and I believe we bought the last ones at the beginning of 2020, so try to get in their normal replacement schedule for a laptop. So that was another one of the big pieces that were left. However, the Register of Deeds, and I know she's not here, but she has a tech fund that, so I guess I'm gonna back up. We had the laptops and the microfiche machine that the courthouse uses to review records broke. So those totaled to be just around $110,000, which is a significant portion of the remaining amounts that we have in the ARPA funds. But through the audit this year, it was noticed that the Register of Deeds Tech Fund has a sufficient amount of money, and by state statute, if it gets to be above a certain amount, she can reallocate some of that back. It's supposed to be used for technology. So what she has proposed is she has that about $110,000 that she would allow, not necessarily allow to give it to Mike, but allow the purchase of those 50 laptops to be purchased under her tech fund. But also another part of that, another layer deep, is the sheriff has also put in a federal grant with Senator Moran to replace his laptops, which is about, I believe, half the laptops that we had allocated. So that kind of removes all that funding out that was allocated, which allowed for some of these smaller devices that are being put in here, like the Lucas device, the AEDs, and then the equipment for down in here. I think that one of the other larger projects that Mike and I have been working on is he has some technology needs that have been what we identified as priority 2 issues. And within the next couple months, he will be bringing those back to the commission for approval. And I think we had about 40 or 50,000 set aside for that, 45,000. And then the other final piece to that was the UKG scheduling time clock and accruals piece that we would that we went down to Finney County, and that was another piece of that ARPA funds.
Okay.
So I believe with the amount of money that we, and I apologize, anything that was left over at that point, one of the commissioners made the suggestion, I think each of you have made comments about it, but if we had money left over at the end, was to have the parking lot right outside this building bid out, and everything that's crumpling and falling apart that Public Works have patched with asphalt, use the remaining allocation to replace the parking lot out, the section that's right up next to the building.
Yeah.
So that kind of takes care of the remaining ARPA funds
So
that
we
we
got
had set aside.
We're essentially got everything allocated for the remainder of the year, but we still have some approvals to do throughout the year for that.
Sure. Every project, every expense that has come out of the ARPA funds, no matter if it's in a department head's budget authority or myself, it don't matter. We've brought every single project to the commission for those.
Okay. And encumbered by the end of 2024, but, and I'm just going to ask this question, I'm not implying anything that we should do this, but if we were to give it back, it's federal dollars that we're giving to the county. If we end up not spending it, and we say, we'll give it back, that doesn't necessarily save county taxpayer dollars. It doesn't reduce like the mill or anything, because it's essentially money that the federal government gave to us. We can either spend it or not, but from a budget standpoint, it doesn't really, it's all taxpayer dollars. We can go down that road, but from a county budget, county taxpayer, it wouldn't save necessarily on county taxes to paid by giving it back.
Correct.
Okay.
It has saved, in essence, county taxpayer dollars and how it's offset different capital purchases
Right.
that we've made, so we
But
didn't have to
essentially,
set money
right.
aside, but
But
giving
by
it back.
Giving it back and then having to do these projects within our own budget could
Then it would
potentially
start.
cost county taxpayer dollars to
Yes, sir.
cover these things. Okay. That's,
And it has all been completely in a separate fund, isolated from everything else.
Yeah.
So that way it's tracked to the penny.
okay.
Thank
That
you.
last project of the admin parking lot is, I think it was Commissioner Younger that made that suggestion. With the amount of money that we have left that would be allocated to that, I would think that the project would cost a little bit more than that, so if we have 40,000 set aside for the parking lot, but the actual bid is 50,000, we could use all remaining ARPA funding that's unallocated for that, and then use capital to cover the difference.
Yeah. Thank you. That's just a kind of clarification I wanted to, on those funds versus our budget and how they're kind of allocated and what the difference is as far as a taxpayer county-wise, what they're spending. Thank you.
I apologize for the 5 different motions here. I figured it was better to make one agenda with 5 motions than 5 agendas with 5 motions, so kind of a little bit of repetitiveness there on the agendas, but if the commission does want to approve any of them.
Okay, I'll move to approve PO 7827 for intercom at the landfill. Item 2, I move to approve PO 7828 for AEDs for the fire department. Item 3, I move to approve PO 7829 for the Lucas CPR devices for EMS. 4, I move to approve 7830 for upgrades to the administrative training room. Item 5, I move to approve PO 7831 for upgrades to the audio visual system in the commission chambers.
I'll second the 5 motions.
Okay, I have a motion and a second for 5 different motions on hand. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motions are all passed. Next, we have discussion over the sale of the Public Works Building.
As we are getting closer towards the end of the year, the Public Works facility is getting closer and closer to being completed, and the estimated move-in date is around the October-November timeframe. As the commission has known, you have asked that we complete an appraisal for the old facility out on 280th to see what its value may be in regards to the process of selling it. And since then, we've engaged with Patty Bacon Ryan to have an appraisal done at that facility, which is attached. And so the process would be, if the commission would like to proceed with the sale of the building, one option, and Mr. Jeter can clarify the process, and we've done this several times within the county, just with a lot smaller buildings, is that we could go to a sealed bid process and open it up for a certain amount of time, and whoever would be interested could submit a bid. And at that point, then when they come back, the commissioners could open them and determine at that point if it's a viable bid, if you want to accept the bid or reject all bids, and then move forward from there. I wish I could tell the future, but I can't, so I can't speak to that. And if it doesn't work, if the county commission would reject all the bids, we could go out as another option after that to send proposals out to local realtors that could put proposals back to the county commission in regards to what type of commission or how they would perceive maybe selling that building off at that point, and what type of partnership we could create. In regards to the appraisal that you see, I know in speaking to all 3 of the commissioners, I think it's fair to say that you were each surprised on the amount that was on that appraisal. I did speak in, I noticed Mr. Williams came in. I kind of reached out to him yesterday with Grow Hayes, with his experience within the community and working on different projects as well as in realty. Visited with him quite a bit and looking at different comps. And I think 2 of the biggest ones that we were discussing were the Keller Furniture Store that Chris Munch bought on East 8th Street. Just a little bit bigger than our facility, 35,000 square feet, and it sold for just under $16 a square foot. And then the second one was Adronics, which is in town here on 13th Street. Also slightly larger, and it is selling for about 1.2 or 1.3 million, which is significantly lower, bigger than ours, in a better location, but also at a lower price than what it was appraised at. And ours was appraised at that $2 million at $90 a square foot. which as we've discussed, seems a little high. And then I did get with K-Camp yesterday in our appraisal, they had an independent appraisal that comes out and appraises all the county facilities, so that way we ensure that we're insuring our facilities at the proper amount, both with the buildings for replacement costs, but also with the contents. That independent appraisal, which I didn't include in here because it was an afterthought, but it valued that building without contents, the whole facility. So there's multiple buildings out there, of course. It's not just the shop. You have the noxious weed, you have the cold storage building, you have the bridge crews building for maintenance and all that. I believe their total estimate for all that facility for that site was just over 1.2 million with about $600,000 in contents. So their value is about 1.2. The building itself for the shop was about 780,000. And so I'm not sure if I sent that to the commission last night, but I can forward that on to you if you would like to see it, or I can attach it to a future agenda for the commission to look at. But at this point, just for the consideration, if the county commission would like us to go out and do the sealed bid process for the sale of the facility, which would create a couple different steps that we'd have to talk about, or if there's anything else that you would like to discuss in regards to the sale, or Mr. Williams's opinions of the facilities themselves.
Well, I appreciate the appraisal here. I guess I'd like to see the insurance appraisal. That way, in case we do get offers well below what is stated here, that we at least have some backing on why we're receiving those. I guess if the insurance company's gonna appraise it at a 1.2 and it's appraised here at a 2, and we get bids or possibly accept a bid of under the 2, we would have some footing as a commission on why we were accepting those.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That was going to be kind of my comment, is the appraisal here is part of public record. They can see the $2 million, so I would like that. The K-Camp appraisal to be part of a agenda item for public record as well, to show the 1.2, because that was kind of in my mind. We got a $2 million appraisal. We do a sealed build and it comes way under. Maybe it comes in at 2 million, but if it's at 1.2 million and we accept that publicly, that looks, I guess suspicious is probably not quite the right word, but that's also, that's part of the conversation is, out publicly, they got a $2 million bid and they cut a nice deal with somebody to get it way under. So I just think that having other appraisals a part of this process publicly, where they can see where our decisions are being made, would be helpful.
And I know the public can't necessarily see it on the agenda. I don't know if IT can throw it on the screen, but as you can see there at the top of this, and I'll send this to the commission afterwards. Okay. These top couple 4 buildings is that complex out there for the Public Works Department, but the building less any contents was 775. The storage building, one of the storage buildings was 80. The fuel tanks and those buildings out in that location, as well as the noxious weed building, they all total up to 1.27 million. So there's the breakdown. And
Okay.
if the commission does move with the sealed bid process, I can add this to a future. Probably nobody can see that out there since I wasn't looking at the screen, a lot smaller. But I can add this appraisal on there, and this is all of our facilities in Ellis County.
Okay.
The total valuation of all, if the commission is interested, is about $44 million in property.
Okay. Do we have an appraisal from the appraiser's office that would also be included in this? Because that would be something possibly asked for by a potential buyer.
I would have to look at our sheet. So every year, even though all the county properties are classified as public infrastructure and tax exempt, I believe it still has values on there, and then we get those sheets every year.
Okay.
And I think I gave them back to the clerk's office and they store them, but I can get a copy from Bobby and we can add that into the agenda as well.
Okay.
Because that may be a question that is asked for somebody for a sealed bid. What are the taxes going to be?
Potential
Depends
taxes
what-
on a
what it
facility like that.
is purchased for, so. I mean, I like the sealed bid. May as well try it, but
It's not
Bill,
gonna
I
hurt
guess-
anything.
it won't hurt
Right.
anything, is
Go
right.
through the steps of what the sealed bid process looks like.
Steps would be, the first step would be to pass that resolution.
Okay.
And then we'd go through the process of advertising for the sealed bids and, of course, opening the sealed bids. And if the highest bid is acceptable to the commissioners, then I would prepare a contract and we would submit that to the buyer. And once we have a contract in place, we have a published requirement of having a public hearing for the public to be able to comment, providing specific information regarding the intent to sell that property at that price. And after that hearing, the commission then can either accept it or reject it. And if the commission accepts it based on the public comments, then it'll be submitted to one of our abstracting companies for a title commitment and eventual closing.
Okay.
We're under no obligation to accept any bid for any.
No,
for any
we'll
reason.
advertise it as a right to reject any and all bids for any reason.
Can a bid come through? Could we consider a bid if they just want the building, one building, not the other, or can that property
Well,
essentially be divvied up or bid separately?
Well, it could be if we send notice for proposals or an opportunity to bid and gave those options.
Okay.
So you're saying,
In other words, we could divide it into various
Yeah,
tracts and
Right.
give us an option on each tract
Okay.
or on the total amount, with the commission reserving the right to select a bid for either all of it or parts of it.
so somebody couldn't afford the 1.2 or whatever they're going to seal bid or 2 million, and you're saying maybe somebody wants a
The noxious
off
weed.
to the
Yeah,
side.
maybe they just want the weed
Right.
department building for something
And
smaller.
that would always be
something-
an option you could do after an initial seal bid on the entire property.
Okay.
Because once we get through that seal bid process, if they're all rejected by the commission, you then would have the opportunity to sell it in any manner you want to. We'd have to go through the resolution and the public hearing process again, but you could sell it by auction sale, you could sell it by private treaty, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Could it go back to a sealed bid process again if we wanted?
Sure.
Okay. Okay.
Where does the railroad fall into this once we get out of that? Any,
Well, we lease, what is it, 10 acres? Well, I've talked to Brandon about that.
Brendan McKay, Public Works Director, Ellis County. So the portion that we lease is just the parking area out in front of the shop. We had previously looked at leasing the entire frontage across the whole fence line. That was 3.7 acres to 4 acres. Commission decided against that and decided to acquire new property for a new building. So it's just a small section where our parking lot is the only part that's in the railroad right-of-way that we lease each year.
so that is that fence line running east and west,
That
correct?
fence line, there's a setback on it, but
Okay.
similar to there. They have 200 feet either side of the tracks. Basically, the center of their tracks is what the railroad has been whittled down to over the years from the 200 miles they were originally given each way. So a portion of the access to the main building is restricted by railroad right-of-way. And since we park equipment and vehicles there, we sign a lease with them. I made hopefully our final payment here for August of 2025.
Did I see any notation of that in the appraisal? I saw adequate parking, but I didn't
That's
see
all I
anything.
seen. Yeah.
I didn't see any connotation of any lease agreement in the appraisal.
Not sure that she probably would have included that since it was just the appraisal of the facility and because
Because I believe, I'll
the
have to look
lease is
here.
not part of our
Well,
facility.
I mean, because it's not part of the facility, but I believe it was on the pictures, some of the parking area.
So would this be something, Mr.
Right.
Jeter, that the new buyer would have to?
Yeah.
Yeah, the new buyer would just have the obligation to
Okay, I don't-
negotiate a new lease with the railroad.
If they want continued access to frontage there with,
If you,
depending upon what would potentially go in there that you could utilize that facility, they may not renew a lease with the railroad and just access the facility from the backside or parking in between the two main buildings.
would you scroll to page 122 on the screen? So that parking lot, basically from the blue line to the greater, everything south is railroad, correct? So where everybody's parked?
That fence is right behind
Portions
that.
of it, yes. So if you go to an aerial image with our parcels on it, it
Yeah.
shows less railroad right-of-way. Although these aren't exactly in the correct GPS locate or
Yeah.
survey locations, it gives you a rough idea of. So
That basically shows the whole parking lot's railroad.
correct, but if you see it's all shifted because
Yeah.
of the way it is drawn in through the ArcGIS and Esri system. So the whole parcel is actually kind of shifted downwards to the
Okay.
south. So a portion of the parking lot is in railroad right of way, a portion of it is not. We lease off just that area that's not farm ground from the railroad.
So will that be in our sealed bid thing that new purchaser
It'd be up
deals
to
with the
them.
railroad?
It'd be up to them if they would
Okay.
decide they want to use that. They'd have to work with the railroad to acquire the easement for that.
Yeah,
the lease for that.
for instance, if the purchaser didn't want to work with the railroad for whatever reason, they could use the west entrances on the shop, or they could put garage doors on the north side of the facility and not need anything on the south end of the building.
That would be part of the due diligence a bidder would have to.
Better.
Well, would we need to provide a survey so we're not overstating what our actual bounds are, what we're actually trying to sell?
Should all be recorded within the deed of the property.
Well, we don't, let me ask Brandon, we don't have any property dispute with the railroad. They know where
No, we have
their
no known,
right-of-way ends and our ownership begins.
correct. There's no known property disputes to my knowledge.
So I don't
Okay.
think we'd need to do a survey.
Okay.
Correct. Because there is also an access road to the north of the entire property that depending upon what the new owner, potential owner would envision, they could utilize that access road.
Okay.
That access road was added as a plat to the Hayes City Suburban Estates plat that was the development platted to the north of there. It was never built out. It has been utilized by some of the individuals, but there is public right-of-way there where they could create their own access point to the north and not utilize the railroad area. As well as the shop also did previously have doors on the north side, but some of those doors were removed for the addition of the parts room and mechanics office and the weld shop, as well as where the AC unit is. The area next to that had an overhead door that was blocked off at some point in its lifetime of the building.
Okay.
Just, I just noticed on my phone, Doug Williams sent me the county appraisal on the building. Total, just for the facility out there, was $726,000. But I can get a copy of that, and on that next agenda item, whenever the commission would like it on there, I can include that, so that way the commissioner would know.
Okay.
Or anybody that would be interested would also know. But
No, that-
anybody would have access to that, what Mr. Williams just sent me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that
That-
way they
that
would
would
know what
be
their
great, because
estimated
that
property
way-
taxes would be.
That would provide some description between the discrepancies upon bids if we have them. That's saying if we have them, so.
And the K-Camp appraisal didn't value the value of the land. It was just the value of the buildings on the fixed buildings on the site.
Okay,
So, all right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, on another clarification, sounds, again, kind of a dumb question maybe, but typically in government, when we're bidding something out, we take the lowest bid on like an auction or selling something. Do we have to take the highest bid? If we are going to accept a sealed bid, does it have to be the highest bid, or do we look at the different bids and for various reasons?
Well, we would, as part of the bid process, we would advertise we have the right to reject any and all bids.
Okay.
So if we had a reason to reject the highest bid, we could.
Okay.
Keep in mind that it needs to be some reason or some persuasion as to why we did not take the highest bid. That's kind of a tricky issue. And I guess if you want my advice, I wouldn't recommend that you do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll get to this in the budget part. I guess you go ahead with anything. Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
We'll get to it on the budget part, but Darren, I guess you can explain, we're talking about the public buildings, but we're going to budget $2 million. Ideally, we're going to sell this next year, so we need to go ahead and budget for the sale, because we can't. And based on the appraisal, we're going to budget for the $2 million. And if it comes in under and that, we can adjust the budget. But if we say we're only going to, let's say, $1 million, and the bid's way higher, then that causes budget problems to be able to transfer if it comes in way higher. So would you go ahead and explain that, why we're going to go ahead and budget $2 million and why we need to do it for 2025 and transfer process for that?
Yes, sir. So there's several options you could do. You don't have to budget for it at all. We could sell the building for X amount, and it would just sit in the general fund as a deposit. And at the end of the year, it would just come in as unencumbered cash that was unrecognized, and it would flow over into 2026 on the budget process. So that could happen. However, as the commission knows, with different large purchases that are coming up, the PD's moving out of the law enforcement center, the ERP program with IT for taxes, appraisal, and our accounting system. The thought was maybe to use that facility to put it back into capital, not just for those future projects, but also reimburse some of the expenses for the new facility itself. So that is one option, is we could do nothing and just whatever we get for the facility can just be deposited and rolled over. The second option has different variations on how you could do it. I put $2 million, as you said in the next agenda item, we'll be talking about the budget. I put $2 million in there. I think we all agree, probably everybody in this room, we all know we're not going to get $2 million for that facility. If we do, I know I jokingly expressed to each of you last night that we should call a special meeting very quick and work fast on getting it approved so nobody changes their mind. But if we budget for $2 million, what that does is, yes, that increases our budget authority by $2 million for the expense side, but we also would put a $2 million line item in there for revenue. So what that does is it impacts nobody's property taxes. I think the generalist would look at our budget and see that it's going up $2 million from what was previously proposed, but the revenue is also. So that revenue offsets anything that would be needed for property taxes. So even though the budget authority would go out, it does not include anything that would impact property taxes. Now, if the building only sells for $1 million and we have budgeted $2 million, we would only get that same $1 million revenue in, and we'd have that same expense as transferring it out to reserves. And then whatever that we're short, that other $1 million, if we did budget $2 million, that would just basically, it wipes itself off in the budget. Still does not improve or does not allow for any additional expenditures or revenues. It would just wipe itself out. It does give the commission the authority to have extra budget authority, but I would recommend that unless an emergency come up, that the commission would not use that extra authority if it wasn't designed to do so.
But really, the commission would be at fault then if we didn't have the revenues that offset it, we would be in,
Yeah, so if we didn't budget for it and we just left it out and we got $1 million purchase for that building, the money would go into the general fund, but we don't have the budget authority to transfer it out into another fund. We could have a very light year, maybe fuel drops down to $1 a gallon, and we would have plenty of budget authority at the end of the year. However, that amount of money, I don't think we would want to bank on, because if not, we would have to wait all the way till 2026 to make the transfer into reserves. It would be nice just to do it for transparency to the public, that if we close February 1st, we have $1 million payment in for revenue, we could have that $1 million expense put into capital right away. It's all clean and clear, so that way it's, like I say, transparent and easy to communicate how it's being spent.
Okay. How will that, we're talking about revenue, so if it's $2 million and but we show expense side of it, so it's no impact to taxpayers, but from a revenue neutral standpoint, we're going to be showing potentially,
So
$2 million worth of revenue.
the revenue neutral rate only impacts your property taxes on the, I don't remember the exact amount, but say it's $15 million that we collect in property taxes. This would be completely separate out of that. If we did $10 million revenue, $10 million expense to reserve, it would not impact the revenue neutral rate. It only calculates the difference from all your miscellaneous receipts, your EMS revenue, your health revenue, your sales tax revenue, whatever's left, also your unencumbered cash. After all that is totaled, you compare that to your budget of what you have left for the gap of what you need to meet your budget, and that's what that revenue neutral rate's based off of.
Okay. And then one other, so worst case scenario, we for whatever reason we're not able to unload this. We've moved out, hopefully by January, February, and so now the county's sitting on an empty lot. What's the budget financial impact of having empty buildings and empty lots and stuff? It's going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars a month to run utilities or something to an empty space.
So I would suggest that we'd keep it insured. So there'd be the insurance premiums for that, which would be a couple thousands for the year. The utilities, I would suggest we keep on throughout the winter. But other than that, the utility bills would go significantly down because we're not going to have big people in and out. I would imagine if it doesn't sell, Public Works might be able to use the lot for, maybe material storage and anything on the outside, or maybe storing some dump trucks on the inside of the building until we sell it. But there would be minimal expense to the facility, just not being used, but we would keep the utilities on. But as the commission knows, as you abandon a building and it sits there abandoned, it's not good for the facility. So the better that we try to get it sold, the better shape that the new buyer will find the facility when they get it. But I wouldn't suggest turning everything on and abandoning it just for the sake of keeping it in its best condition as we can before we do sell it.
Thank you.
The other only thing that I'm kind of concerned about, especially if someone buys it local, what kind of contaminants are out there? Is there any? Can anyone answer that question? Is there something?
I'd have to look at our Tier 2 reports.
Okay.
There's no Superfund site out there for any materials. They do have oil barrels and everything out there, but those are all contained pits and in containment areas. The fuel area will be there in concrete berms. Those tanks will be moved. But I'm not aware of any Superfund sites of any spills out there.
So any spills that have been noticed and recorded, the affected soil has been taken off and properly disposed and farmed. There's all water from like the wash area is drained into a settlement tank, and that is cleaned out regularly and disposed of through proper methods, taking the water to treatment sites, taking the solids. Hurdle takes that and disposes of it properly. So there, to our knowledge and my knowledge, there is no known contaminants on the site.
But I wanted that for my information and for everybody's, just in case somebody would ask.
If there's ever a spill it's of a recordable size, that we treat that how we have to, by removing the affected area and containing the spill first, removing affected soil and materials, setting that off to be treated, and then replacing
Okay.
new materials in its place. But nothing, the used oil tank is above ground. There's no underground tanks for used oil or fuel. It's all above ground storage.
Brennan, while we're on this topic, what about, we store aggregate materials out there.
Correct.
Such as asphalt millings and things of that nature. What if in the future we have cleaned up our asphalt millings and we get a nice rainfall? And there's a shimmer in the water, more or less an oil slick in the water. Is that our responsibility?
I wouldn't be able to speak to that at this point in time. I'd have to do a bit of research.
Okay.
But our intent is to take off all, so that where those millings are at and the asphalt was mixed in that yard over the years, they had built a
Containment?
pad down for it. So it should all be on that pad, and our intent is to remove said pad when we move to the new facility.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
How's it, is it zoned just light industrial, heavy industrial? How's it zoned? Do we?
I believe it's outside the city's ETJ, and we have it identified as PI, which is public infrastructure. So it's identified as all county. We have listed as that. So it would have to be rezoned after the new purchaser.
Yeah, and I guess that's my follow-up question then. Is there a potential need to, does that limit potential purchasers, or can we rezone it ahead of time, or do we just wait till the purchaser decide how it needs to be rezoned?
I'll let Justin speak to that. I think we can rezone it, and there would be some restrictions based on being right next to the railroad, the residential property.
Because around, again, I pulled up, we got residential on the north, we got farm on the east, and so I just didn't know if it could be rezoned to something similar to that, housing, or if it has to stay. To me, it looks industrial, light or heavy, but.
To my knowledge, you could rezone it to whatever you wanted, go through the process.
Through the process.
So, yeah.
I think
I don't know if it'd be best to wait.
we could
until
probably
it's
go to a flex use,
Yeah.
more or less at that point.
That's what I was just gonna ask. If it,
If you go to flex or residential, you might limit some of the uses depending, but.
I think you may want to determine that after you have a potential buyer, so we don't zone it back to commercial and then they want it as industrial and that, or flex.
But it would
or
have to be, being PI, it will have to be zoned. Okay. Okay, and again, probably due diligence from a buyer, they should
Yeah,
probably know that
that'd be the
before they.
buyer's responsibility.
Okay.
Ultimately, it would go through the planning commission and it'd come right back to the county commission, so.
Okay.
Got it.
We're gonna be dealing with this.
They may
piece
be,
for
they
a
may
while.
be on the correct path to have it approved eventually.
Right.
Okay. This is also kind of a dumb question, just throwing it out there, but is there any reason the county would that we should maybe just keep it for future public works needs or anything like that? I know that's the plan all along, is to build a new facility and sell this, so I'm not trying to disrupt anything there. I'm just, again, asking public question. Is there any reason the county should entertain just keeping it?
There is a great use there for a material stockpile yard that's south of Interstate on the outskirts of Hayes. The other thing that I know the commission has spoken about previously, we have these little parcels the county owns all throughout the county, 2-3 acres. Something in the future that we may have to look towards doing is having graders stationed in those parcels, in those territories. Because right now, a lot of the machines are stationed that are out in those areas at a former employee's house or a pole that's out in someone's field that's allowed us to park there. A lot of counties that have rural patrolmen like that, they're not finding patrolmen that live in those territories, so they're having to send people there or have their grader tied up 10 miles away and have to travel 10 miles to its territory. Something that we may do in the future is have these little grader shacks, 3-sided sheds with a lockable office that you can put 2 graders in, and 2 territories would be dispatched from that one location. If you kept that parcel, that would be a good spot to keep something, to keep The patrolmen that are around Hayes that currently pull out of that yard, they could stay coming out of that yard instead of having to come from north of Interstate off 183. But that's up to the commission to decide if they decide they want to sell it, or if it's sell all of it, sell a portion of it, keep something back. It's up to the three of you to decide. I could make use of it, but it's up to you guys to decide what use you'd like that to be.
I guess just to build off of that, not necessarily as the counter to that, but that would seem like, besides just a lay down yard, that would seem like a lot of money to keep sitting there just to have, go buy 4 acres somewhere else for $5,000-$10,000 and spend $20,000 on a building and offload this completely. Would be a better option to me.
Correct. That's basically if you don't find a suitable buyer for it, we'll make good use of the facility.
Use of it, okay.
Where you find those 4 or 5 acres for $10,000, please let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ground's going for about
An acre.
35. Yeah,
There's a number of
base
different.
ground's going for almost $4,000 here in Ellis County from when I looked. So
Like over the winter, I guess the one good place you could keep all the dump trucks staged up with salt and everything, all the blades on everything, keep it in a facility like that that has heat for them to be ready to go the next morning.
Well, and there's how many patrolmen stage out of that current location?
our current location, we have 3. At the new shop, we will actually have 4. We have 1 right now that's currently parking its equipment at the landfill, which will be moving to our location once we have all of our facilities up and open there.
So are those same 3 that are currently dispatched out of that location, will those be the same 3 that dispatch out of the new location?
Correct. And it'd be better to keep, 2 of them could stay. Most of their territory is south of Hayes and south. One's almost entirely south, goes all the way down to Chitola. So he's going to have a bit of a further travel time. So we're looking at different options of where we could potentially house that grader in the future when we move.
Okay.
That question had been asked several times to me, and it's not like if we get a snowstorm that they can't work their way out of there.
Correct, and that's what they
open
do.
roads. So that can be worked out.
Yep. And that's generally what we do. We don't have them lift their blade up to drive to their territory to plow if the road hasn't been opened up. They'll put their blade down and make a single path through to their territory, through someone else's territory, if that makes sense.
Okay. I don't know, there's some options that we probably need to consider before we just go ahead and list. Because if we're going to potentially look at it as a somewhat of, maybe we cut off, parcel out 3 to 5 acres off the back side of this and use the access road or develop the access road. Maybe we look at that before we go ahead and list the entire facility as presented.
It-
Because maybe there are some uses that
There's
we
some
potentially
value.
overlooked.
Yeah, there's some value there in doing that, because some of the people can't afford $7-8 million. They want a parcel. I know Commissioner Burgess had brought that up several months ago already about busting that off into pieces, so.
It's ultimately the 3-year decision. I'd recommend, like Darren and Bill stated, that you try and sell it all as one, because there's better locations that we could have a greater house, because I've had greater huts in previous counties that were in towns and
Well, I think
surrounded by
until
homes.
we get some of those locations, I think we hold.
Yeah.
And I think we maybe, I guess, in my opinion right now is maybe we'll table this resolution, bring some more information forward to where we have the full gamut of information on the appraisals on public record, and then maybe we have some other ideas on options for greater territory storage. That's my opinion, I guess, at this point.
I would have a question. if we knew that there's somebody out there that was willing to buy the property, whatever, the dollar amount that would be acceptable to the commission, would you accept, not knowing what that is, there's a lot of variables, but
I would
guess
be,
what I'm getting at is if we do list it, we can still reject everything, but at least what that process is gonna be, and it would still give you time to discuss the options throughout the proposal. So it speeds up the ability to be able to sell a facility and know what you're actually gonna get. And then by the time you make the decision, do you wanna parcel it out? Do you wanna maybe save 5 acres on the backside to put a facility? But you would be able to compare that with what we get back from the open bid. And then you could determine, well, the open bid process did or didn't work, parcel it out, or maybe work with the realtor for proposals to start listing it, or like I say, split it, save some for us for a
but can you
grading shack.
actually do that reasonably? Can you actually reasonably list it if you have no feasible alternatives? If Brendan comes back and says, we're gonna buy 3 separate locations, or we propose 3 new locations for graders, and it's gonna cost us, $100,000, can we do that and go, well, if we keep this, we could maintain that?
Yeah, Mr. Jeter said you could,
I mean, we can
all
reject
bids.
all bids, I understand that.
But
But I
like
mean,
even
how
with-
can you negotiate in good faith if you don't know in good faith what you're looking at?
we don't even have, like,
We don't
Brendan's
have any of those
proposal.
shacks. It's something that probably 10, 15 years plus in the future, I'd say.
Yeah, but people are gonna see, starting January, the graders a half hour later in territories. I mean, that's 6 months. That's not 15 years, that's 6 months.
No. For, like, the 3 that we'll be running out there, the one goes over towards Catherine, its territory is up there. The other one is the west side of Hayes. The other one is the north side of Hayes. And the last one that we potentially run is that north side of Hayes going down towards you. So it's still within 3 miles of its 2 to 3 miles of its territories where it would start. So it's not like it's traveling across the county to get to its territory. But that's something that in the future we can look at doing if the commission at that time desires it. If they're looking for having 2, we always tear them in 2s in previous counties, because that way you had 2 people to help. They could help each other change blades. They could help each other in their own territories if they had bigger projects. Just something to help streamline the process. And that it may not be in the middle of the 2 territories exactly. One may have to travel 2 miles to get to their territory, but that was just how they had done it there. They'd put little 3-sided sheds up in the small communities throughout the county and dispatch their machines from there directly, because we didn't have people that lived in those territories that operated those machines.
We also have I guess at this point, no capital plans or any discussions to do any of what Brendan has talked about.
Which I understand, but also from the public, you start seeing the cart in front of the horse on some of these options, on some of our moves. That's what I don't want to see happen is, well, we sold this and then we had to buy a property across the road, something like that, from a public standpoint.
Yeah, because when they see that blade going down the road and it's up in the air, that's when they start calling and questioning you.
Well, they call whenever they see it go by anyways.
We do have a letter that we'll address here later, but we start driving that grader past it with the blade in the air on a daily basis.
Well, they call whether the blade's up or blade's down, unfortunately.
Yeah, but it's going to get worse.
It'll get,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But that's not the best spot for a grader shack. It's just, it was a use when I was asked if there was a use that we could use for it. It'd be a beneficial use, but I think selling the property, getting the value, or seeing what value you can get for the property. It's like Darren said, it may not be $5,000 for the ground. We don't need 5 acres for a yard. You can have an acre yard. It's just a 3-sided shed that you can fit 1 or 2 graders in. You can build a 3-sided pull shed on an acre ground for that
Right.
$20,000, $30,000.
Finding that with electricity so you can plug them in.
Correct. And we can put power out there. We do that at
You
those.
can do anything with dollars.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing. The world is endless with money. So it's just our job to make the best use of the tax dollars allotted.
Well,
How long does the sealed bid process, I don't see that in here. If it goes to sealed bid, how long do we allow it to, until we get bids back?
Wherever you want.
Okay.
so if we
20
could-
days, 30 days.
Okay.
I think you need to leave people sufficient time to do their due diligence. So probably 30 to 60 days.
Yeah.
I would agree.
That work, Doug, do you think?
I believe we should go on with this. That way we can get
Yeah.
sealed bids and see where we're at.
I think we
and
just,
then re-look at it if we get
I
nothing
think
that
we
we
have
don't
to see
like.
what bids are, see if
See what
there's
they
any
are.
interest out there at all, see if we get any bids, and just,
Like Mr. Jeter said, we can reject anything and
and
then take our second step.
I think we already have a plan for the finances of it, toward it, as Darren spoke, so I don't. Is there some value to it? Maybe a piece of it, but I think at this point, we haven't planned for other shacks for graders, so I think trying to figure that out while we've already got a plan for this, I think it's worth moving forward to see what the bids are and then make some determinations if we get adequate or quality bids or not, or if we get any bids. And they're sealed, so I think I guess that's where I'm at this point, was just approve that.
Okay. So do I hear a motion then?
Well, I'll move to approve Resolution 2404-09, allowing the sealed bid process to start for the sale of the old Public Works facility.
And I'll second that.
Okay,
Do we need to set a time frame within that motion?
You could, if you want to. Or you could leave it discretionary with Darren.
So the,
I would suggest that we initiate that and at least have the bid opening around September 1st. That'd be about 45 days out.
the notice for real estate that's in the agenda packet is very close to his. Mr. Jeter's, I put September 4th because I think the
Okay.
3rd or the 2nd is
What the days are.
Labor Day.
Okay.
I think that Monday is Labor Day, so I just put the 4th, so it's very close to Mr. Jeter's recommendation of the 1st.
And then keep it open for 60 day?
Well, that would be when the sealed bids would
No,
be
they-
due,
they'd be due on
They'd be due.
September.
It'd be
Okay.
due by then, so that's
Got it.
about 45 days.
45 days.
Okay.
Okay. Then,
Okay, so we have a motion,
I second it.
and you went ahead and seconded it. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will oppose, so, but still passed. Okay. Moving on. Update on county budgets.
Okay, the final agenda item today is the 2025 budget update. As you can see, the budget is in the agenda packet is proposed as we have it today. All the personnel costs have been updated, as well as the $2 million for the Public Works facility is also added. Those are the two major changes. There are several little small changes within a couple different departments that they had, I would say, within just a few $1,000s of each other. Just made some quick updates. The next process is just to have it here at this meeting, just so it's out there on a public commission meeting to be viewed. And then Thursday here, July 18th, starting at 8 o'clock, is the budget sessions with all the elected officials and department heads, which will be in the room next door. And at that point, you'll have your ability to visit with all the department heads, elected officials, go over the outside agencies, all the different funds, sales tax funds, fire district, solid waste departments as well. And give any feedback to those departments or to staff to make any changes that you may like to see on that. After that, comes into August, which kind of is the final step for the budget process, and you'll see it one last time in August. And if you give the thumbs up at that point, the following week it'll be noticed for Bobby to publish and everything. So that way it's published. I believe it has to be. There's a certain deadline that has to be published before we have our public hearings at the first part of September, and then the 2025 budget process will be wrapped up. But like I say, other than that, we've kind of hit the big point on the discussion topic for the public works facilities, that biggest change. As we're sitting today, again, Commissioner Burgess kind of hit that point, is there looks to be like there's a budget increase of several $1 million extra than what would be normally thought of, but that's mainly because of that, the change for the public works facility, that $2 million. If you look at the increase in the amount of revenue compared to the increase in the amount of expenditures, revenues still outweigh the expenditures. So it's still looking good for the county budget process. And when we meet come Thursday, I'll have the preliminary state budget forms, I would say tentatively completed, so I can at least get you what the R&R rate would look like, or where we're at and compared to the R&R rate for 2025. But obviously, as I stated before, I couldn't really do that until last week once we get those final numbers from the auditor of our year-ending cash balance for 2023.
Okay, very good.
Any questions on that?
What's for lunch on Thursday?
Jimmy John's.
Jimmy John's, huh? All right.
And we are doing it in this room?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any preference that you would like to have lunch ordered in for?
Not Jimmy John's. So. Guess that's public record. Jimmy John's is fine. I don't want to
I think the
get
clerk
attacked
should
by
make that.
Jimmy John's.
I think the clerk should make that decision.
I guess for the record, yeah, there's nothing wrong with Jimmy John's. It's just we get it a lot.
Don't come at
Got
me
it.
as a public official or something on.
You've overindulged.
I've eaten a lot of Jimmy John's, and I need a break for a few years.
Okay. Before we proceed to the administrator report, I would like to address a letter that was received, and also we've received multiple phone calls. I know as commissioners from different constituents concerning road conditions, and that will also, the comment I'm going to make is that is all part of our budget discussion on Thursday. We have some preliminary thoughts, and we'll be discussing that more, and then we'll have this letter in particular we'll address it at an August meeting. Okay. Moving on to our county administrator report, Darren.
Is there a specific August meeting you'd like to add that, the letter regarding Hilltop? I know August 6th is the primary election, so Bobby would like to keep that meeting shorter if possible since the election's going on.
Our August 13th meeting, we'd like to try and limit as well, because we have the health fair over in Russell that Kim has invited us to.
And justice planners will also be here, so they'll have
Okay.
I wouldn't say lengthy, but allow for some time for them to give their proposal.
Go the 20th, then everything will settle down a little bit.
Okay.
I think at that point too, with the budget at that point completed for 2025 and your capital plans with the talk of 48th Street, Vineyard, 270th.
I think we'd have some more definitive answers by that time.
No, yeah. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and put that on the 20th.
I do not have a report for you this morning.
Okay. County Commission reports. Commissioner Burgess?
Attended the groundbreaking for the upcoming new community center for the community of Hayes and Ellis County, and excited to see a lot of elected. It took a lot of work to get funding throughout from different entities. The county participating in that to get that off the ground. So I'm looking forward to seeing the progress forward with that.
Okay. Commissioner Younger?
I also attended that and very appreciative for all three commissioners plus our administrator being there, and that's something we've invested in, so may as well keep in and dig our heels in and move on. Also, make sure everybody, if they can, get out to the fair. The weather's going to be much better than normal. Usually it's 100 plus like it has been. The other thing I would always also like to say is, you know, we had a fire chief that risked his life. Everybody keep family, friends, all that in thoughts and prayers for that. I feel our leaders should have put the flag at half staff, but anyhow, it is what it is, and that's all I have.
Okay. Well, I'd like to extend a thank you to all the employees who were able to attend the employee barbecue last week. I feel we had good attendance and a lot of positive feedback. So other than that, I was at the groundbreaking and look forward to seeing the results of that groundbreaking. So, I don't believe we have any executive sessions, do we? Okay.
Has anyone heard as far as feedback on, not feed, but the appreciation meal? I mean, we've heard good reports.
I've heard a lot of positive.
Okay, that's what I have heard too, so.
I'm sure Janet and Jennifer, they helped out a lot, and Jennifer has expressed to me several positive comments, and I can see if she can put together some of her thoughts that she got and maybe send a group email and send me an email that I can share with the commissioners.
I guess the only thing I have heard was it should have been either in the spring or fall, you know, due to the workload, but you know, there's never a good time. Just have to do it.
Intention this year, just things got too busy. We had a lot going on, but in April is local government month, and that was our original intent, was to have it in April. So hopefully, if the commission within your budget passes it for next year, that we would try to do it in April.
Okay. With that, we'll adjourn at 10:58.